Okay, so my technology that we're going to work on today is the Google Art Project. So you start by going to Google Art Project, which is just googleartproject.com. Um, this site houses various works from different artists around the world in different periods, and it's organized in a couple different ways. So once you get to the site, you can either browse by the collection where the art is housed, browse by the artist, or search. So if you were to go to a collection, you would go here. You would have to know where you were looking to go. So if you were looking for a certain painting, you'd have to know which museum it is in, and you could say, go to the Art Institute of Chicago. This tool is mostly useful if you're browsing, um, or if you've heard of a museum that you've wanted to check out, but it's less useful if you're looking for something in particular. If you're looking for something in particular, you can filter by artists. However, this is um, filtered by first name. There's no option to change it, so you have to really know a lot about your artist to know what their first name is. The other option is to search, which I have found the most useful. You could search, for example, by Botticelli and realize, oh, his first name is Sandro, and then see the various paintings that he has done. Some important caveats to also think about is that the resources are limited for now. They don't have access to all art from all museums. So just because you know of a painting or know of an artist does not mean you'll be able to find it on this site. And you have to be aware of some art to find what you want to find. The intent is that they had was to make galleries and museums accessible, so it's laid out in that way, so you can kind of browse by the gallery, but that's limiting from a teaching perspective if you're looking for something in particular. So let's say we wanted to find artwork by Botticelli. We're here, we could see the Birth of Venus and click on it to get more information. Once you get to the painting, they list more art down below, and you can change what this view is by clicking right here. So not only can you zoom to get a more detailed look by clicking here, you can also change how you explore. So you can explore by collection, artist, or date. I have found that searching by date is the most helpful, and once you click that, you'll see that more art from that same time period pops up on the bottom that you can browse through. This button on the left is a little misleading. Though it says discover, it does not have anything to do with the art that you're currently looking at. If you click discover, it takes you to a random smattering that I think changes day to day, based on collections and artists that don't really have much to do with each other or what you've been looking at, but might be a good way to expose yourself to some other artistic options. So from here, if you were going to create a lesson from it, you probably want to create your own galleries. Those galleries are really helpful. So you can you have to log in, and you can log in using your Gmail information, so you don't even have to create a different account. And let's say that I wanted to add this lovely painting to a gallery. You wouldn't have to even go into your galleries. You could just click on it and then go to the left-hand toolbar, click Add to Gallery, and then you can choose a gallery. So You can either include it in one that you've already created. I have two, visual literacy and Shakespearean art. You can keep it unassigned, or you can create a new gallery right here. So I'll call this example, and then you have to make sure to click add. If you keep the art unselected, you can go to your galleries and it'll show up in unassigned art, and then you can drag it somewhere. You can also see the other galleries that you've put together. One final tool that I wanted to show is the user galleries, which you find in the upper toolbar. These are galleries that other users have put together based on whatever their interests are or their theme is. It can be useful, however, it's a lot like Wikipedia in that there's no content filters, so just because someone says that all of this art is of Hampstead Heath doesn't mean it necessarily is. So that's sort of the basic navigation of the site. The next portion of this is to talk about lesson ideas. And when I was browsing through this website, I came up with a couple lesson ideas that I think would be the most useful in an English classroom. So the first of which is visual literacy. The goal of a lesson on visual literacy is to help students gain the ability to read visual cues like they would a text. This is a really important life skill and it's so teachable, and I think that it's something that is easily missed in school because it doesn't fall into the normal English curriculum, and skills in visual literacy definitely translate to regular literacy skills. So the key to a lesson on visual literacy is sort of starting with something that the students can successfully interpret, then move on to questioning why they feel the way they do about that art, and then eventually work up to comparison. So they're kind of gaining the skills to think critically about what they're seeing. So I'm going to go to my visual literacy gallery that I've already put together. So I wanted to start with this painting because it seems like it's something that students could probably pull a lot of ideas from based on their already gained knowledge, what they're already aware of. It actually depicts two young princes being whisked away from a castle in a boat to find a safe haven at a monastery, and I think that those are the types of things that students can pull from it. The style is very clear, so it's easy for them to see it. You're able to see the young children, see the sort of emotion. There's anxiety in the adults' faces, and curiosity and fear maybe in the young son. The fact that they're royalty, the students could probably glean from the elaborate dress of the mother and the fur blanket that they're surrounded with, and also the trunks that are overflowing with what looks like riches and valuables. So I think that that's a great starting place for them. And then an important note is that religious art obviously has cues that some students would be familiar with, and it tends to be where a lot of our minds go right away. But I think it's important to diversify for the sake of the student population and not only use religious examples, and try and find artwork that has cultural context in other ways besides just religion. The second painting is one that I included because it again depicts wealth, but in a different way. You can see the elaborate dress of the women, and the fact that they're even sitting for a portrait is a sign of wealth. So these are the types of beginning stages. I also really recommend Flemish artists, which are the next two, because at the time that Flemish artists that movement became popular was a time when intense realism was the trend, and so you see that in the art, and you really see them depicting these people surrounded by the objects that come to define who they are. An important tool to also teach the students is, much like reading a book, in looking at a painting, you can look at the title to give you important clues as to what you're seeing. The next step that I would do is ask them to break down these cultural cues by clarifying what elements in the painting make us think something. And I think that Rubens is a really great artist for this because of his style. So I like to look at this painting to clarify what the women's bodies tell us, because though a lot of people think that they're pale and overweight, at the time that's actually what was beautiful. So that's one of those steps in breaking down what we think is important. And then finally, I would work up to comparisons. I really like to use early Renaissance and late Renaissance as comparisons because the style changes so much in such a short period of time. And then also in these paintings, it's about more than just the content. It's also about the style. So you can look at the gold leaf in the background of this painting, and that shows you the importance of the art. You can also look at the flat perspectives, and that's a reflection of where they were stylistically and skill-wise, and then you move on and you're able to see depth and line and form. So that was my first lesson idea. My second lesson idea is to have your art coincide with what you're reading to provide perspective to a theme or the context around which the work was written. The example that I put together is art that coincided with Shakespeare because Shakespeare was writing around the time of the Renaissance. So it ties into the idea of the changing form of art, the inclusion of secular themes, and a focus on humanism. I think it's important to include a perspective on where the art began and then work up to really what the extreme levels of skill were so that students can see how far it has come. So moving into the high Renaissance art again. And if you continue this conversation, students could eventually create their own gallery walk where if the teacher provided the art, they would provide summaries and information that go along with the art, sort of like they're walking through a gallery. The final element of this project is to talk about sort of how this site fits into our overall ideas on what makes technology good. Overall, I think that this is a worthy tool for classroom use. The use of art in general is a great tool for English classrooms, and this does so in a way that allows teachers to interact with art based on their own needs. It's usable and accessible because it's free and there's no downloads or anything like that, but it's important to note that the site is slow, it's not always functional, and there are quirks of the site, like working with the galleries can be really difficult. As you can see, I can't play through my paintings very easily. I have to keep going back and forth. You can't edit your galleries really easily either. I think that this is a lot more engaging and takes less time than the traditional methods of creating a slideshow or a PowerPoint. And it's a really engaging way to interact with the art, and students can look up art by time period or by artist. And it has use outside of the English classroom. But I see this as being more of a teacher resource rather than a student-driven activity because of the limitations of the layout. It would be better if the students could come up with their own questions, like what was art like at the time that Cyrano was written, and answer it themselves. Unfortunately, the site just doesn't allow for that kind of discovery. So really, you, as a teacher, you need to use it to put together information and then allow the students to work through it. But overall, I definitely think it adds value to the curriculum. I think it's better. I think it's more usable and accessible. There are quirks, but in terms of some of the other technology we've looked at, it's definitely less quirky, and it seems like it's only going to grow in the future to make it more usable in classrooms.